The private jet gleamed before Joe's as he stood in his mud-stained work boots, clutching a check worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. For 20 years, he had saved every penny from his farm, telling no one but his wife about his dream of touching the clouds. Now, in the pristine showroom of elite aviation, the whispers and sneers of well-heeled customers made his calloused hands curl into fists. "Sir, I believe you've wandered into the wrong building," the sales representative said with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. The Agricultural Equipment Show is in Hall B. Real Life Stories now brings you an extraordinary tale of dignity in the face of discrimination. As Joss studied the jet's elegant lines, memories of his father's words echoed in his mind. Your worth isn't measured by what you wear, but by what you carry in your heart. The legacy of that wisdom was about to shake the foundations of elite aviation's pristine world. Every head turned as Joss reached for his wallet. But before he could reveal the truth about his financial status, a familiar voice cut through the tension. The moment that followed would transform not just Joss's life, but the lives of everyone who witnessed what happened next. The tap on Joss's shoulder came from MOCKS, an old friend, whose weathered face broke into a warm smile. For a moment, the hostile atmosphere of elite aviation melted away as they embraced. But the respite was brief. 20 years of friendship allowed MOCKS to read the tension in Joss's shoulders. The way his eyes darted between the gleaming jet and the judgmental stares surrounding them. In this pristine showroom, their work-worn appearances stood out like weeds in a manicured garden. Still chasing that dream of yours? Marcus's eyes twinkled with understanding. He'd known Joss since their school days, when Joss would sketch airplanes in the margins of his notebooks, dreaming of a day when he'd break free from the gravitational pull of his family's farming legacy. Every Sunday, they'd watch planes soar overhead, and Joss would whisper, "Someday, Marcus? Someday." "Dreams don't look good on farmers, apparently," Joss replied, gesturing to the group of executives who'd gathered like vultures, phones raised to capture what they assumed would be his moment of humiliation. Their designer suits and polished shoes formed a stark contrast to his work-worn clothes, but their smugness couldn't diminish the pride he'd earned through decades of honest labor. Each snicker and whispered comment only strengthened his resolve. Real Life Stories now captures the raw tension as one man's dignity collides with society's prejudices. The whispers grew into bold taunts, each barb designed to drive Joss back to his familiar fields. But the soil that had nourished his crops for decades had also planted something else in Joss, an unshakable belief in his worth. "Hey, farmer," a sharp voice cut through the murmurs. "That dirty hat belongs in a barn, not in our world. Know your place." The speaker, a middle-aged executive with a gold watch glinting on his wrist, stepped forward with the confidence of someone who'd never been denied anything in his life. His companions chuckled, their laughter echoing off the polished surfaces of the showroom. Jose's fingers brushed the hat's brim, his father's last gift before passing. The worn fabric held memories of early morning harvests, of teaching his son the value of hard work, of moments both triumphant and devastating in the fields. Every callus on his hands testified to the years of dawn to dusk labor that had made this moment possible. The early mornings in freezing fields, the scorching afternoons under an unforgiving sun, the countless sacrifices his family had made, all of it had led to this moment. His voice, when it came, carried the strength of generations. "Your world?" He turned slowly, meeting their sneers with quiet dignity. "I've earned my place in any world I choose. Every dollar I'm about to spend was earned through honest work, something you might not recognize." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. Joss stood straighter, his presence filling the space in a way his antagonist's expensive suits never could. The sales representative, who had been hovering uncertainly nearby, finally spoke up. "Another time when you're more appropriately dressed for the occasion." The check that silenced the room, the forced politeness, barely masked his disdain. But Joss noticed the man's hands fidgeting with his tie clip, a nervous tick that betrayed his discomfort. The laughter that had filled the room died in their throats as Joss revealed the certified check. But his true victory wasn't in the money, it was in his son's arrival. A Harvard-educated lawyer, his son's presence transformed their mockery into stunned silence. The younger Joes strode through the door with purpose, his tailored suit and commanding aura, forcing the group to reassess their assumptions. The contrast between father and son told a story of sacrifice and achievement. "Dad," his son's voice carried across the showroom. "Are you all right?" The concern in his tone was matched by the steel in his eyes as he surveyed the scene. In that moment, Joss felt a profound sense of pride, not for the jet he could afford, but for the son he'd raised to stand against injustice. His son had inherited his determination, but channeled it into legal briefs instead of crop yields. The arrival that turned the tables, the story that unfolded at Elite Aviation, was no longer just about discrimination. It became a powerful testament to perseverance and dignity. Each heated exchange revealed another layer of Joss's character, his resilience forged by years of prejudice, his unwavering belief in justice, and his determination to create change. The executives shifted uncomfortably, their earlier bravado diminishing under the younger Joss's professional scrutiny. In those tense minutes, as his son confronted the discriminatory treatment, Joss realized this moment transcended the purchase of a private jet. It was about challenging the judgment of appearance over character. The trembling hands of the sales representative and the nervous glances exchanged between executives suggested they too grasped the gravity of their actions. Their privileged world was colliding with the reality of consequences. The showroom fell silent. Customers who had been browsing stood frozen, witnessing the drama. Some looked ashamed, perhaps recognizing their own biases. Others seemed impressed by Joss's dignity in the face of blatant discrimination. Just as the confrontation neared its peak, a new voice cut through the tension. "The recording that exposed the truth, I've been recording everything," Patricia announced, her voice steady despite the risks. "And I'm not the only one tired of seeing good people judged by appearances." She held up her phone, displaying a video that would soon become crucial evidence. "Mr. Joss isn't the first person I've seen treated this way, but I decided he would be the last." Months later, after a court victory, Joss stood beside his new jet at a different airfield. The settlement had bought something far more valuable than an aircraft. It funded scholarships for underprivileged youth passionate about aviation. Today, he welcomed the first class of students. "The scholarships that took flight your clothes don't define your altitude," Joss told them, his father's worn hat still proudly perched on his head. "What matters is the determination in your heart and the dreams in your mind." The students' mechanics' children, farmers' daughters, and kids from struggling neighborhoods gazed at the jet with awe. As Joss climbed into the cockpit beside his newly licensed pilot son, a familiar face caught his attention. The elite aviation salesman stood among the crowd, now a volunteer for the scholarship program. Their eyes met, and an understanding passed between them. The look that bridged two worlds. Sometimes, the greatest journeys aren't measured in miles, but in minds. New brings you these transformative moments that remind us what's possible when we rise above prejudice. Help us reach 10,000 subscribers to share more stories of courage, dignity, and change. Like, comment, and join our growing community of storytellers and dreamers.